Hello, welcome back to my channel, you guys. Today's video is going to be about palettes I regret not buying. It hurts so bad. Anyway, I have 8 palettes to share with you guys today that I so regret not picking up, and now I can't get them anymore. So if you guys are curious about the 8 palettes that I did not end up purchasing and can no longer purchase and really regret it, then just keep watching. Alright guys, the first and probably the most painful palette for me that I did not end up purchasing is actually a face palette. It is the Jaclyn Hill Champagne Pop face palette. Now I remember being in a Sephora store holding this in my hand. I was gonna buy it and I decided that I really wasn't into highlighting at that time, and I was really just getting into makeup, so I really knew nothing. Like, I could barely do my own blush. I couldn't even do my own blush. So I was like, what purpose does this palette really serve me? It was like $54. I was like, nah, pass. And now I hear people rave about it being still like their favorite face palette, and I just totally regret not picking up, especially because Jaclyn Hill at the time was one of my favorite YouTubers and still is, so I just wish that I had supported her in that collection. Yeah, that one stings. Let me know if you guys picked that up, and do you love it? Is it as good as everyone says it is? The second palette, this should come as no surprise. I feel like everyone talks about regretting not getting this palette. It is a Kat Von D. It is the Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca Remix palette. What a cool palette. What a great palette if you want to experiment with color. I like that it's set up like a color wheel, so that I feel like it's beginner friendly, and then like obviously it's great for people who are makeup artists as well because it just offers so much. Such a cool palette. Wish I could have gotten my hands on that. I wasn't into makeup at the time that this palette released, but now I look back and I look at all the pictures and I hear all the people talk about it, and I hear people, or I see people do like tutorials with it and stuff, and I just really regret that I didn't get that one. Third on my list is a more recent palette, and it is actually the Morphe Dare to Create palette. This palette was in my cart on Ulta.com so many times, probably like in and out of my cart 4 or 5 times, and for some reason it didn't click or connect to me that it was a limited edition palette. So I kept just being like, oh, I'll push it off, like I'll wait. Like, it was around the holiday time, so I was like, I'm gonna like buy Christmas presents for people because that's the right thing to do rather than buying myself this palette. And then I went on just recently when I got the 20% off Ulta coupon at the end of January, and I was going to pick it up and it wasn't there, and then I realized it was limited edition and I could no longer get it, and I was really sad. I love that it had all the color in it. I like palettes that offer neutrals with color because I'm such a neutral girl, but it's nice to have those colors in there so that if you ever feel, you know, so inclined to push out of your comfort zone, the options are there. It just looked like a really cool palette, and I'm really bummed that I didn't get it. Next up on my list is an older palette. It is the Makeup Geek and Manny MUA palette. I really like Makeup Geek shadows, and this was just a really cool palette. I liked that pop of red. I liked that blue, brown, greenish shade that everyone kind of does, and then it just had your great like natural transition colors, so I wish I had got my hands on it. That's one that doesn't hurt as much just because I feel like that it's one that you can kind of replicate, but it was a really cool palette, and I think Manny MUA is hilarious, so I wish I could have supported him on that. That is a regret. Next up on my list is the ABH Self-Made palette. Now the reason that I regret not getting this palette is because now I've started my ABH palette collection, and I just wish I had that one to add to it. It had pink champagne in there, which I absolutely love that color. I have it in a single shadow, but really the reason I regret not buying it is just because I am collecting Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes at this point, and I just wish it was one that I had in my collection so that it felt more complete. So that is another one that I regret not buying. Next up is actually a blush palette, and is the Lorac Pirates of the Caribbean blush palette collab. I remember this is another one, like I had been in store a couple of times and I had swatched it, and there was a couple of blush shades that I absolutely loved, and then I was like, no, you don't need it. I wasn't that into blush at the time. If I had been as into blush as I am now at that time, I can guarantee I would have purchased it, but I was just like, no, you really don't need this. And that I again was in store a couple of times and had swatched it and was like carrying it around, and then decided I didn't need it at the time. But I've heard people say really great things about that face palette, not necessarily the eyeshadow palette, but that blush palette. And I wish I had picked that up, because now I'm like super into blush, and I still think about, I think it was like that middle blush shade. It was like more of a mauve tone, like dusty rose type of color, and it was so beautiful, and I wish I had picked it up. Then the last palette on my list, you guys, is the Violet Voss X Laura Lee palette. I had really been thinking about picking up this palette, but at the time I just didn't want to spend the $45 on it. And now I look at a lot of the Violet Voss palettes, and there's just colors from the Laura Lee one that I liked that they threw in there, because it didn't feel so, I don't want to say so cohesive, but it felt like you got like your neutrals, but you also had like these fun pops of color. Whereas now I just feel like a lot of the Violet Voss palettes just feel a little bit dull and boring to me as far as like their color scheme. I know they did just come out with their hashtag palette, which I do have my eye on and am interested in, but I just wish that I would have picked that Laura Lee palette up. I know I had gone to their website a couple times contemplating buying it, and then by the time I had decided I wanted it, it was gone. So anyway, guys, those are the 8 palettes that I did not end up buying that I now regret not purchasing. Let me know in the comment box below if there are any palettes that you regret not purchasing. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, don't forget to do so before you go. And other than that, I'll just see you guys in my next video. Bye.